Alright guys, today's video we're going to take a look at my normal workflow, exactly how I start, how I make all of my decisions based on the client that I'm working for, whether it's a model or an individual, who is just getting some portraits done, whatever the case it is. This is how I start out. Let's get to it. Alright, so starting out, the first thing, obviously you're going to do as a photographer is you're going to get the feedback from your client. What photos do they like? Now, some photographers, and I know quite a few that do this, they make all the selections for the client and then present the final edited images to the client. That's one way of doing it. And if your client is okay with that, hey, go for it. If not, you'll have clients that will want to see all of the images and then make their selections based on that. So whether you're doing it on site or you're uploading to a storefront, whichever it is, they're going to make their selections, then you're going to go from there. So if you look at this image here, let me show you exactly what we had set up. This was in the gallery area of our studio where we usually have like art shows and things like that. And when nothing's going on, it's just one really large open room that has a few benches and some other amenities, throughout the room. So lighting wise, this is very simple, utilizing the bench. We did a couple other shots in that same room, but we wanted something that had more of an industrial look to it. So I went with 3 lights. I had a separator light that was, putting some light on the background because it's a brick wall. I didn't want it to go gray, due to, the shutter speed and everything that I was using. So I want to keep some light back there, as well as my main light was a strip box and my fill light was a large umbrella. Now, I know most people will do the opposite, where their fill is going to be the smaller light. I prefer in most cases when I can, get away with it, to sculpt with the light box, something like a strip box here, and then fill the room or fill, the shadows with a larger light source, whether that's going to be one of these large umbrellas or shoot through, surface or something like that. So it just depends on exactly what I'm doing. But because I was in the gallery, easily accessible to my studio, it wasn't very difficult to move lights, from one room to another, down the hall, things like that. So that's how I set everything up. I was shooting with a Nikon back then, and this was the D800, if I'm not mistaken. I was using my 24-70, 1/25th of a second. I think I was at f6.3. We'll check that just to be sure. And it's a good chance that I was shooting at an ISO of 200. Okay, so let's jump over to our image, which is this one here. So we're going to go ahead and just open that in Photoshop. And as you see here, you can see the background wall. You can see pretty much everything here. It is a little warm, but that's to be expected, in that room because of the overhead lights. So usually I would bring that temperature up just a little bit. I would bring it up just to see where it's going to fall. I usually go back and forth to see what I like. And I'm going to fall somewhere, and I can bring the exposure up just a little bit just to lighten everything up. This is meant to be light and airy. You don't want it to be really contrasty, for the type of shots that you're shooting. And check my little profile. Now, see, that brought it up way too much. So let's bring our exposure down just a touch, so we don't lose a lot of our detail and, saturation and color. And then we're just going to go ahead and open our image. So usually with young models, you don't really have to worry a lot about, facial things, where they have bad skin or anything like that. And that was the same case with this model here. She had really good skin. So it was a relatively easy image, to capture, and then it's going to be even easier, I think, in some cases to edit. So let's see, starting out with the first thing, I would usually go in and I would, assess my crop. I want to get that really close to the head, somewhere about there. We don't want to lose the shoes, so we'll keep her in like the middle. And you think about these like for an 8x10 or something like that that's going to be shown. Now I'm going to try and I can crop this out, but I may be able to just fix it. So let's see if that's possible. This doesn't always work. We'll give it a shot. So let me try again. I want to get a better selection. Somewhere in there. Command T on a Mac. See if we can drag that out. It's not perfect, but it still looks like it's more contour to the shape of the bench itself, so that works. It's a little distractive thing back here. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that. And just these little things I notice, you know, you don't have to really spend a lot of time on this because it's not really that big of a deal. Her jacket is open. Usually I would just leave that alone, but I'm going to see if I can push it in just a little bit. So I'll go into Liquify and see if I can adjust that. Let's see if we can just push that. So it doesn't look so open. Let's fix up some of these sleeves. That looks good. So let's zoom in here and check the face, see if there's anything we want to adjust. Everything looks pretty nice. Jawline's good. And we can adjust that just a touch. Eyes are nice. Lips. So you can give it just a touch of a little bit more of a smile. I'm good with that. Legs, feet, everything looks good. So other than if I was going to do some skin softening, there isn't very much more I would do to this image other than maybe get rid of this flyaway hair here. See if we can get that. There we go. Let's check the other side. Not too many flyaway hairs that I think people would notice. I mean, there's a few, but I wouldn't go that far into it. So I did get this new panel, and we're going to play with this and see what it does for us. So this is Beautify version 2, and it's basically just a script panel that does a bunch of different things. You know, you have your frequency separation if you're going to use that. You got skin, eyes, sharpening of the eyes, things like that. And you just basically run these scripts and then brush in whatever you want to use. But one of the ones that I like is playing with the lighting here. Now most of the things that you see in this panel, I wouldn't really use for a modeling client. This would be something more for like your portrait clients, maybe on location or something, you know, creative in the studio, something like that, you know. So let's see what the color auto does. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It kind of gives it that, you know, teal orange look. You know, I could work with that. So let's see what happens. I'm just going to flatten that. And let's just see what it does with the white balance. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. Would I use this? Probably not. Now here's one, this auto tone. And if we zoom in here, we could turn these off. I don't really see a lot that it's doing. You know, I mean, but like I said, it's one of those things, you can play with them. Now, one cool thing it does have, if you go under moods, it allows you to add LUTs, basically. So let's zoom back out. And we're going to choose just a random LUT. Let's go with Italy. Ooh, that's really dark. But I mean, you can adjust the opacity, you know, bring it out some. I'm not really a fan of that one, so we're going to take that one out. Let's pick a different one. Twisty. See what that does. Ooh, okay. Definitely not a fan of that one. Okay, we'll give one more a try. You know, that's not bad. I could see maybe about 25%, 20% somewhere up in there. That could work. But again, you know, this is something that you would just play with to see if it was something that will work for you. Now, one of the things that I did notice, it has a few other really cool things here, but all of the things that you see in these panels, you can do this in Photoshop on your own. You just have to know where the specific tools are that do a certain thing, you know. So for instance, there's a sharpener contrast, there's a smart contrast, there's a high pass contrast, you know, so you have all these different things here. Reduce noise, high sharpening. So let's just do the sharpening just to see what we get. It takes a minute to load, so this is not super fast. But I can tell already that it's creating a mask. So if we zoom in here, and we turn it off, you can see the sharpening effect. It works. I think it may be a little too much, so let's roll this back. And I mean, that's only at 50%. So if we brought that down to say 20, you know, like I said, it's not great, but it's not bad. You know, all these things are just tools. So it just really depends on your workflow and, you know, your vision. There is no right or wrong, you know, unless you're doing something commercial where the colors have to be a specific color. You know, the designer has a color palette and they want everything to be exactly that color palette. So, you know, that's a difference, you know, when you're really, you know, dialing in your white balance and your colors, you know, during the shoot as well as in post. But for most clients, you know, they just want things that are creative, that are artistic, you know, that show, you know, themselves in a very good light. That's all they're concerned about. So, you know, you can experiment with these and figure out exactly what works best for you. Now, I noticed in this image, her eyes were not in focus. So that may have a lot to do with the focal length of the lens, you know, so that again is something that you want to take into consideration. You know, like I said before in many of these videos, you know, if you can shoot tethered, do so. Now in this situation, because of the fact that I moved from the studio down into the gallery, yes, I could have brought a laptop, shot tethered, excuse me, all those things. But, you know, usually you're just moving from one room to another and you're just trying to get some quick shots or whatever it is, and then you're going to move on. So I'm going to go all the way back to open. And if you see here how warm this image is, even when I, you know, cropped everything and, you know, done some of the other stuff, you know, like with the liquify and everything, you really start to see the difference when you start using that plugin, that panel. Now, like I said, you know, a lot of guys love this type of stuff. So if it works for you, it works for you. You know, I would take an image like this and say, okay, well, that's cool. I like what it did here. So maybe I want to take it to the next level. And I would go into maybe another filter and just kind of play with things. You know, I mean, you could do double exposures. You could, if you guys have Luminar, you know, Luminar AI or Luminar 4, you know, most of them do basically the same thing. You could use some of the presets there. Now, with Luminar, you can do batch processing. So, you know, you don't want to make any extra work for yourself. So if you brought all of your images in, say, in the standalone, you could bring them all in. You could do all the post editing in there once you've done all the basics. So you could bring these into, say, Lightroom or Capture One and cull your images and adjust your white balance and get all that stuff ready. Export them out if you wanted to, or you could send them straight over to Luminar and then they would be in basically a catalog. And then from that catalog, you would go in and say, I'm just going to edit one image, and then you could copy all of those settings over to the other image. So I chose this flawless here. If you see the one I chose here, and if you notice, it slimmed her down just a touch, right? So if I go to a different one, you see it expands back out. So if I choose any of these, these are things you have to take into consideration. Like this marquee, it adds a lot of color saturation. I mean, it's just way over the top. But you can dial that down too. So, you could find just the combination that you like that works for your image. Now, I'll play with, like I said, a lot of these different templates. But usually for me, I go into, the settings. And if I was going to just work on her as the individual, then I would do the face, skin, body, so on and so on. But then you have all of these other things in here, like color harmony. You can go in here and you can adjust the warmth of an image. You can adjust how cool the image is going to be. You can adjust, how saturated something is going to be. So like you see there, it's just way, way oversaturated. But like anything else, you want to play with these. You have your color cast, split warming, color balance, so, whether you're dealing with the shadows, the midtones, highlights, it's all up to you. So as a photographer, as a creator, one of the things that I think inspires us the most is that experimentation. We can get in and experiment with something and, just see what we can create. Now, what's cool, if you're looking at your history, now I always have my history panel open so I can go back and look at all of the different things that I did. Now, one thing that you guys could do, depending on what it is you're doing, you could create an action, so you could basically record all of your steps and, create an action. And then from there, you could apply that to another image, in the future if you wanted to do that. But again, it's like anything else, so you could have all of your actions here. Like under the affinity panel, I could just choose one of these colors and just hit play, and then it'll go through and, well, usually it will. Yeah, there we go. So I did it twice, but you get the idea. This is not rocket science. It's art. So being that it's art, you want to be as creative as you possibly can, without making, ridiculous amounts of work for yourself, especially if this is a client project. But if it's just something that you want to play with, you want to learn, and you want to, lock the skill set down, I say experiment, to your heart's content. You're sitting at home or between classes or wherever you may be, sitting out at a coffee shop, just keep a couple of images on your computer, and when you have that free time, just play with them. Go look at things that other photographers have done, and just keep experimenting. That's what's going to help you grow. That's what's going to enhance your skill set. All right, guys, I'm going to bring this video to an end. I'm just rambling on here a bit, but remember, if you have not subscribed to this channel, please do so. It helps out the channel, it helps the algorithm. You know how Google is. So anyway, guys, I will catch you guys in the next video. And I had someone comment about this because I always close the videos the same way. When I say guys, I'm not just referring to males. I'm referring to everyone in the photography community, whether it's, male or female. We're all artists, so I see us all equally. So if you hear me say guys, I'm not excluding the ladies. So don't take it that way. All right, but until next time, guys and ladies, I will see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to wash your hands, stay safe, and get out there and create something. Peace. I'm out.